All right, so today we're going deep into a place that's, well, it's pretty mysterious, the Bohemian Grove. It's this exclusive 2-week retreat, and
Yeah.
yeah, it draws in some of the most powerful people in the world.
Yeah.
And your sources paint a pretty fascinating picture
Hmm.
of how they spend their time there. We're going to talk about history, sociology, and
Yeah.
even a bit of like bizarre theater.
It really is a fascinating mix. Yeah.
Yeah.
You got this secrecy, this air of exclusivity. So of course people are curious.
All right, right.
But we're also going to bring in some serious academic research. See if there's more to this retreat than meets the eye.
Yeah, absolutely. One of your sources is an excerpt from The Bohemian Grove and Social Cohesion. It's
Ah.
a scholarly article by UC Santa Cruz professor J.G. William Domhoff.
Yep.
And he dives into the social dynamics of this elite group, and it really makes you wonder,
Hmm.
is this just a playground for the powerful
Yeah.
or something more?
That is the question, isn't it? Domhoff argues that while the Bohemian Groves may not be where concrete policy decisions are made, it serves a deeper purpose, potentially shaping how the elite interact and view the world.
Okay, so before we get into like all the details of Domhoff's research, like set the stage.
Okay.
You mentioned history earlier. How did this whole Bohemian Grove thing even come about?
Well, the Bohemian Club itself, it was founded in 1872 in San Francisco
Right.
by a group of journalists and artists.
Okay.
Initially, it was all about fostering creativity and camaraderie.
Right.
But as you can imagine,
Yeah.
keeping the lights on for a club dedicated to the arts, it takes a little more than passion.
Sure. Yeah.
They needed some wealthy patrons
Ah.
to really make things happen.
Right.
Yeah,
The age-old tale of patronage.
exactly.
So was this shift towards a retreat for the ultra elite a sudden change? Or more of a gradual evolution?
It was gradual, driven by the need for, financial stability.
Yeah.
Over time, the club attracted more and more influential members,
Yeah.
eventually transforming into the exclusive retreat we know today.
Okay, and speaking of exclusivity,
Yeah.
you mentioned earlier that there's this air of secrecy surrounding the Bohemian Grove. What can you tell us about the membership process and the club's overall culture?
Well, let's just say getting into the Bohemian Grove is no easy feat.
Okay.
Rigorous vetting, long waiting lists,
Oh, wow.
and an emphasis on discretion that would make a secret society blush.
Really?
Yeah, they even have a motto, "Weaving spiders come not here,"
Wow.
which speaks volumes about their desire to keep things under wraps.
Weaving spiders come not here.
Yeah,
That's both ominous and strangely poetic.
it is, right?
It sounds like they're serious about leaving the worries of the outside world
Yeah.
behind those hallowed gates.
Yeah.
But what exactly do they do once they're inside?
Well,
Besides, weaving.
right. Well, that's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
One of the most talked about aspects of the Bohemian Grove
Uh-huh.
is the Cremation of Care ceremony. Just imagine this.
Okay.
A mock funeral procession, complete with woodland voices,
Oh, wow.
an effigy representing dull care,
What?
and a giant owl shrine.
Wait, a giant owl? This is starting to sound less like a retreat for powerful people
Mhm.
and more like a scene from a fantasy novel.
Yeah, you're not wrong to think that. But there's a deeper meaning
Okay.
behind all the theatrics.
Okay.
The Cremation of Care ceremony is essentially a symbolic initiation.
Mm-hmm.
It's a way for these high-powered individuals to kind of shed the burdens of responsibility
Yeah.
and embrace a mindset of carefree fun,
Okay.
if only for a short while.
So it's like a giant symbolic exhale for the elite.
Mm,
They get to step out of their high-pressure roles and just be.
exactly.
Oh, wow.
And get this, even figures like George H.W. Bush, Clint Eastwood, Walter Cronkite,
Really?
they've participated in this ceremony,
Wow.
chanting Cremation alongside their fellow lakeside frogs.
Hold on, lakeside frogs. What in the world does that even mean?
Well, you see, each attendee of the Bohemian Grove gets assigned a whimsical title,
Mm-hmm.
like Lakeside Frog,
Okay.
to further emphasize the idea of leaving their everyday identities at the door.
Okay.
It's a way of fostering camaraderie and reinforcing the notion that everyone is equal within the Grove,
Yeah.
at least for those 2 weeks.
I have to admit, I'm finding it harder and harder to imagine figures like George H.W. Bush embracing their inner lakeside frog.
Right.
But hey, maybe that's the point.
I think it is.
Right. To step outside of those rigid public personas.
Exactly. Yeah. The Grove provides a space for them to let loose
Uh-huh.
in a way they rarely can in the outside world.
Right, okay. So we've got these powerful people engaging in elaborate rituals,
Yeah.
embracing their silly sides.
Mm-hmm.
What else fills their days at the Bohemian Grove? Surely there's more to it than just symbolic cremations
Right.
and frolicking around as lakeside frogs.
You're right, there's a whole lot more.
Oh.
Entertainment is a huge part of the Bohemian Grove experience.
Oh, okay.
They stage these elaborate theatrical productions called hijinks.
Hijinks.
Yeah.
Sounds pretty highbrow for a bunch of lakeside frogs.
Well, they do like to mix high culture with a bit of bawdy fun.
Okay.
In addition to the hijinks, they also have something called low jinks,
Okay.
which are more comedic, often satirical musicals.
Now that sounds more like what I'd expect from a group that's just shed all their cares and responsibilities.
Right.
What kind of satire are we talking about here? Anything juicy?
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
It's important to remember that for a long time, women were completely excluded from the Bohemian Club.
Oh, right.
So naturally, the low jinks often feature men in drag,
Okay.
poking fun at societal norms, indulging in a bit of gender-bending humor.
Men in drag at an exclusive retreat for the elite. That's quite the image.
It is.
And speaking of exclusivity, when did that barrier for women finally start to break down?
It wasn't until the 1970s that the club finally began admitting Jewish members.
Wow.
And, in turn, started to consider opening its doors to women.
Wow, so much for bohemian ideals of inclusivity.
Right.
It seems like even organizations that preach freedom and creativity can be bound by social norms and prejudices.
It's a good reminder that even in seemingly utopian settings,
Yeah.
the real world always manages to seep in.
Yeah.
But even with those limitations, the Bohemian Grove has always attracted top-tier talent
Oh, yeah.
for its theatrical productions.
Okay.
We're talking A-list entertainers who perform for free during events like Little Friday Night
Okay.
and Big Saturday Night.
Wait, A-listers performing for free. Why would they do that? Surely they're not hurting for cash.
It speaks to the level of prestige associated with the Bohemian Grove.
Okay.
Performing for this audience, even without a fee, is seen as a privilege.
Huh.
It's a chance to rub shoulders with some of the most influential people in the country.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's all about who, even in the world of entertainment.
And these productions are no small feat.
Oh, no,
Right?
not at all.
Our sources mention massive sets,
Mm-hmm.
hundreds of participants,
Yeah.
significant costs, all for a one-time performance.
That's right. The scale of these productions is truly impressive.
Wow.
They spare no expense
Yeah.
when it comes to creating a truly unforgettable experience
Wow.
for their members.
Okay, so we've got the productions,
Yeah.
but the entertainment doesn't stop there, right?
No, it doesn't.
We haven't even touched on the lakeside talks,
Right.
where prominent figures from various fields give speeches and presentations.
That's right.
Now that sounds like a place where real-world influence could start to take shape.
Yeah.
Who are some of these prominent figures? What kind of topics do they cover?
You name it, they've probably spoken about it at the Grove. Politicians, scientists, business leaders, artists, you name it.
Wow.
It's a diverse range of perspectives. But there's definitely a focus on issues that directly impact the elite
Right.
and their interests.
Okay. And I understand one particular former president had quite the affinity for these lakeside talks.
You're thinking of Richard Nixon?
Yeah.
He was absolutely fascinated by them.
Huh.
He saw the Grove as a valuable platform for networking, gauging the political landscape,
Yeah.
and perhaps even planting seeds for future policies.
Now that's what I'm talking about. Did he ever mention any specific experiences or takeaways?
He did.
Really?
In fact, there's a rather infamous quote from the Nixon tapes
Okay.
where he describes the Bohemian Groves as, and I quote, the most faggy goddamn thing you could ever imagine
Oh, wow.
with the San Francisco crowd.
Oof. Well, that certainly doesn't paint a very inclusive picture, does it?
No, it doesn't.
It seems, even with their lakeside frogs and whimsical titles, certain prejudices die hard.
It's true.
Yeah.
And it highlights an interesting shift in the Bohemian Club's membership. In recent decades, it's become predominantly Republican,
Oh, okay.
which might explain Nixon's comfort in using such language, even in private.
Right.
Yeah.
So we've got these influential figures gathering in this secluded location, engaging in bizarre rituals, enjoying top-tier entertainment,
Right.
attending talks on weighty topics.
Mm-hmm.
The big question is, do they ever actually talk shop?
Wow.
I mean, with all that power concentrated in one place, It's hard to imagine they're not at least discussing the state of the world.
That's where things get a little more nuanced. While there's certainly informal discussion of politics and world affairs happening throughout the groves,
Right.
Domhoff argues that it's not necessarily a place where concrete policy decisions are being made,
Okay.
or at least not to the way we might imagine.
Okay, so maybe it's less about formal strategizing and more about shaping perspectives and building relationships
Yeah.
that could lead to those decisions down the line.
Right.
Sort of like a giant informal think tank.
Exactly. The social dynamics of the Bohemian Grove are a crucial part of its appeal, and, according to Domhoff, a potential source of its power. It's all about fostering trust and camaraderie among the elite.
Right.
Remember, these are individuals who operate in high-pressure environments,
Right.
constantly facing scrutiny and opposition.
Sure.
The Bohemian Grove offers them a reprieve from that.
Yeah, okay.
A chance to let their guard down, connect with like-minded individuals.
So in a way, it's like a giant pressure valve for the powerful.
Yeah.
They come here to blow off some steam,
Right.
connect with their peers,
Yeah.
and maybe even find some common ground on the issues that matter most to them.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And this is where Domhoff's research gets really interesting.
Okay.
He argues that the Bohemian Grove
Yeah.
acts as both a product and a facilitator of social ties among the elite,
Right.
contributing to what he calls class cohesion.
Class cohesion. That sounds pretty academic.
It does, doesn't it?
Can you break that down for us non-sociologists?
Sure. In simple terms, class cohesion refers to the degree to which members of a particular social class, in this case, the elite, share common interests, values, and a sense of solidarity.
Okay.
Domhoff argues that the Bohemian Grove plays a significant role in strengthening those bonds.
Okay. I'm starting to see the connection.
Yeah.
So it's not just about having a good time. There's a deeper sociological function at play.
Exactly.
But how does this class cohesion, as you call it, translate into real-world influence?
Well, Domhoff suggests that when you have powerful individuals with strong social ties, they're more likely to share similar viewpoints and work together to achieve common goals.
Right.
This, he argues, can translate into a greater ability to influence policy and shape the world in ways that benefit their interests.
I can see how that could be a concern.
Yeah.
But isn't that getting a bit close to conspiracy theory territory? I mean, are we really suggesting that some grand plan is being hatched under the cover of redwoods and owl shrines?
Well, it's important to distinguish between genuine scholarly research and unfounded speculation.
Yeah.
Domhoff isn't suggesting there's some grand conspiracy being orchestrated at the Bohemian Grove. He's simply pointing out that when powerful people share strong social bonds, it can create an environment where ideas flow freely.
Right.
And consensus can emerge more easily.
Yeah.
It's about understanding the potential for influence. Not necessarily uncovering some sinister plot.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's more about subtle influence and shared interests than outright manipulation.
Exactly. Domhoff is careful to emphasize that this doesn't mean that every policy decision is being made at the Bohemian Grove. It's just one piece of a much larger puzzle when it comes to understanding how power operates in society.
So the Bohemian Grove is like a microcosm of elite networking and power dynamics. A place where relationships are forged, ideas are exchanged, and perhaps a shared vision for the future is solidified.
Precisely. And to support his argument, Domhoff cites research in social psychology, specifically on group dynamics. Studies have shown that exclusive settings like the Bohemian Grove contribute to group solidarity and policy consensus.
That makes sense. When you're surrounded by people you trust and respect, you're more likely to be swayed by their opinions and come to a shared understanding of complex issues.
Exactly. And it's not just about being swayed by opinions. It's about developing a shared worldview, a sense of us versus them. This is where the potential for groupthink comes into play.
Groupthink. That sounds a bit ominous.
It can be.
What exactly does that mean in this context?
Essentially, groupthink occurs when a group, especially one that's insulated and homogenous, like the attendees at the Bohemian Grove, become so focused on maintaining consensus and harmony that they fail to critically evaluate alternative viewpoints.
Okay.
Or consider potential risks.
Right.
It can lead to poor decision-making.
Yeah.
And a lack of accountability.
So while this camaraderie and shared identity might seem harmless on the surface, it could potentially have negative consequences if it leads to a narrow, self-serving perspective among the elite.
That's a valid concern. And it's one of the reasons why the Bohemian Grove has attracted so much attention and scrutiny over the years.
Right.
It represents this hidden layer of influence operating outside the traditional channels of power and accountability.
It's like they're playing by a different set of rules, shaping the world in ways that most of us can only speculate about.
That's the crux of it, isn't it?
Yeah.
It raises important questions about transparency and accountability.
Sure.
When the elite operate in such exclusive circles, it can be difficult to hold them accountable for their actions or understand the full extent of their influence.
Okay, so we've established that the Bohemian Grove fosters this sense of class cohesion and potentially contributes to groupthink among the elite.
Right.
But how does this actually play out in the real world?
Yeah.
Does Domhoff offer any specific examples of policies or decisions that might have been influenced by the connections forged at the Grove?
That's where things get a little trickier.
Okay.
While Domhoff's research highlights the potential for influence, it's difficult to prove a direct causal link between the Bohemian Grove and specific policy outcomes.
Right. I imagine it's hard to get a smoking gun.
It is.
When you're dealing with such a secretive and informal setting. But surely there must be some hints, some anecdotal evidence that suggests these connections might be shaping the world beyond the redwoods.
You're right. Concrete evidence is hard to come by.
Yeah.
But there are a few historical examples that raise eyebrows.
Okay.
For instance, some historians believe that early discussions about the Manhattan Project, which led to the development of the atomic bomb, may have taken place at the Bohemian Grove.
Really?
It's also been suggested that the Groves played a role in shaping the Reagan administration's economic policies.
Okay.
Given the close ties between Reagan and many prominent Bohemian Club members.
Those are some pretty significant examples.
They are.
So while we can't say for certain that the Bohemian Grove is directly responsible for these historical events, it's certainly plausible that the relationships and shared perspectives fostered there could have played a role.
Exactly. And that's what makes the Bohemian Grove such a fascinating subject of study. It's a window into a world that's largely hidden from public view. A world where power operates in subtle and often invisible ways.
It's a reminder that there's a whole layer of influence happening behind the scenes, beyond the reach of public scrutiny. Which begs the question, what does all of this mean for us, the non-Bohemians?
Right.
How should we view this concentration of power and influence?
Well, for starters, it challenges the notion that power is solely about formal institutions and official channels.
Okay.
The Bohemian Grove reminds us that informal networks and social connections play a crucial role in shaping decisions and influencing outcomes.
It's almost like there's a whole unwritten rule book that governs how the world really works.
Right.
And the Bohemian Grove is a glimpse into that hidden playbook.
I think that's a powerful way to put it.
Yeah.
And this realization naturally raises concerns about transparency and accountability.
Sure.
When so much influence is concentrated in the hands of a select few, it can be difficult to hold them responsible for their actions or ensure that their decisions benefit society as a whole.
It's like they're operating on a different plane of existence, shaping our world, while most of us are completely unaware of their activities.
That's a valid concern.
Yeah.
And it underscores the importance of critical thinking and skepticism.
Okay.
We need to be aware of these informal networks of power and be willing to question the narratives presented to us by those in positions of authority.
So the Bohemian Grove serves as a reminder that power isn't always transparent or accountable.
Right.
And it's up to us to dig deeper and challenge the status quo.
Precisely. And it's not about demonizing the individuals who attend the Grove or accusing them of malicious intent. It's about understanding the dynamics of power and recognizing that even the most well-intentioned individuals can be susceptible to groupthink and the allure of exclusivity.
It seems like the Bohemian Grove is a potent symbol.
It is.
Of the hidden forces that shape our world.
Mm-hmm.
A place where the elite can relax, connect, and perhaps shape the future in ways we can only speculate about.
Right.
But is it all just harmless fun?
Right.
A way for powerful people to blow off steam and connect with like-minded individuals?
Mm-hmm.
Or is there something more insidious at play?
Yeah.
Something that we, the non-Bohemians, should be concerned about?
Those are the questions we're left grappling with, aren't we?
Yeah.
And as we've discussed, there are no easy answers.
Right.
The Bohemian Grove is a complex and multifaceted phenomenon.
Mm-hmm.
A reminder that power operates on multiple levels.
Yeah.
Both visible and invisible.
It really is a fascinating paradox, isn't it? This gathering that embraces, ritual and revelry.
Yeah.
But it operates within a framework of exclusivity and potential influence.
Right.
It's hard not to be both intrigued and a little bit unnerved by it all.
I think that's a perfectly natural reaction. Yeah. The Bohemian Grove exists in this liminal space.
Yeah.
Straddling the line between harmless retreat and a potential breeding ground for elitism.
Right.
And that's precisely what makes it so captivating.
Right.
It forces us to confront uncomfortable questions about power, influence, and the often hidden forces that shape our world.
As we've been talking about all of this, I keep thinking back to those whimsical titles they assign themselves, like Lakeside Frogs and all that.
Yeah.
It's almost like they're trying to create this alternate reality where the rules of the outside world don't apply.
Yeah, it speaks to the powerful allure of escapism.
Right.
Even for those who seemingly have it all.
Right.
These are individuals who shoulder immense responsibilities, face constant pressure.
Yeah.
The Bohemian Grove offers them a chance to shed those burdens, if only temporarily.
Right.
And embrace a sense of childlike wonder and camaraderie.
But can you truly escape the realities of power and influence, even in a setting as whimsical as the Bohemian Grove?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Domhoff argues that even in their moments of revelry and escape, the elite are still engaging in a form of social conditioning that reinforces their shared identity and worldview.
Okay.
Remember, these are individuals who are accustomed to being in control. To having their voices heard, their opinions valued.
Right.
The Bohemian Grove provides a space where those patterns of behavior can be further solidified.
So even when they're chanting cremation and frolicking around as lakeside frogs, they're still, in a way, perpetuating the power structures that exist outside the grove.
That's a very insightful way to put it. It's not necessarily a conscious effort on their part. It's more about the subtle ways in which social dynamics and group behavior reinforce existing hierarchies and patterns of influence.
It's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. They come to the grove seeking escape and camaraderie.
Right.
But in doing so, they may inadvertently be strengthening the very systems that create the need for escape in the first place.
I think that's a profound observation.
Yeah.
And it highlights the inherent complexities of power and privilege.
Right.
Even when those who hold power seek to distance themselves from its trappings, they often end up reinforcing the very structures that grant them that power.
It's a bit of a catch-22, isn't it?
It is.
And it makes it all the more important for us, the non-Bohemians, to be aware of these dynamics and to engage in critical thinking about the ways in which power operates, both overtly and covertly.
I couldn't agree more. It's not about, vilifying the elite or attributing malicious intent to every gathering behind closed doors.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing that power, even in its most seemingly innocuous forms, can have far-reaching consequences.
So what's the takeaway here?
Well,
is the Bohemian Grove simply a harmless retreat where the powerful go to unwind and connect?
Yeah.
Or is it something more? Is it a symbol of undue influence?
Right.
Breeding ground for elitism and groupthink?
Yeah.
Or is it something in between? A complex and nuanced reflection of the power dynamics that shape our world.
I think the truth, as is often the case, lies somewhere in the gray area.
Yeah.
The Bohemian Grove isn't inherently good or evil.
Right.
It's a microcosm of human behavior. A space where ambition, camaraderie, and the desire for escape intersect in fascinating and often unsettling ways.
It's a reminder that the world is full of hidden corners and whispered conversations, and that the most consequential decisions are often made not in grand halls of power, but in intimate gatherings where shared perspectives and subtle influence hold sway.
I think that's right.
So the next time you see a news story about a CEO, a politician, a celebrity, take a moment to consider the unseen forces that might be shaping their decisions.
Yeah.
They may not be wearing whimsical titles or chanting around an owl shrine, but the echoes of the Bohemian Grove and the dynamics it represents might be closer than you think.
Absolutely.
Something to ponder, wouldn't you say?
Indeed. Food for thought for us all.